right, I think we can go ahead and start. So I'll pass it to you, Eric.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Mildy. I am a member of the Business Sustainability Associates, kind of a new face added in over the summer, but I'm going to be the primary facilitator for the Career Speaker Series. So the way we're hoping this will go is that we set this up as a Q&A format where we have a couple of pre-prepared questions, just general early career questions for Kayla Bashore here, and we will just go through the line, maybe get some information about just her background and what led her to this. And then at the end, we will hopefully open it up to about 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A just for anybody that has any pressing questions. They can post in the chat and we will just try our best to answer as many as possible. But yeah, I'd like to welcome Kayla. She is a sustainability analyst with CHS. And Kayla, if you'd like, maybe just give us a little bit of an introduction about your background.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much, Eric. Hi, everyone. Glad to see a couple people on the call today that I know. And thanks so much for the BSC to have me back already. I'm very excited to be here today with you all. But my name is Kayla Bashore, and I currently work as a sustainability analyst at CHS. I've been at CHS for just about a year and a half now and really enjoying my time. And some of my responsibilities as an analyst include a lot of ESG reporting. So that's my primary focus right now. So when you think of ESG reporting or sustainability reporting, think about yearly sustainability reports that get published. And then I also help to support and manage some of our compliance to upcoming regulations and disclosures like the ones we are seeing in the European Union. So that's a little bit about what I do now. In the past at CHS, I've had a little bit of a hand in supporting our greenhouse gas inventory work, our sustainability strategy, and some projects on regenerative agriculture. And so uh, you might be thinking, who is this young lady? Why agriculture? Because I think oftentimes, especially at NC State, we might talk about tech or healthcare and sustainability. But I found that I have a passion for agriculture. It started in high school, and I think really the why is because, in my definition, agriculture is all about helping others, and so that really aligns with my values. And I think one of the greatest things you can do is help others. So that's a little bit about why I chose a career in the agriculture industry. And with that, I decided to go to the University of Florida, which is a land grant institution, to get a degree in agricultural education and communication, and was very involved in my time at the University of Florida with a lot of organizations that we might cover today. And then I held some internships as well that helped give me a lot of perspective on what I wanted to do in my career path. And so I actually interned for a carbon neutral firm in marketing. And it's funny to say that now because freshman Kayla would have never thought she would have been in a career in sustainability. So it's just such a coincidence that that was one of my first ever professional experiences. And then I also held two internships with a chemical company actually local to the RTP area called BASF. And so I interned as a business representative in both Florida and Illinois in their crop protection division, where I learned a lot about specialty crops such as strawberries, citrus, sugarcane, and then moved to Illinois for a couple of months to learn about corn and soy, which is most of what farmers grow nowadays anyway. And so with that, I actually thought I was going to have a career with BASF, be a business representative, but those those long internships gave me perspective, and that perspective was that I was lacking the business acumen that I needed for that role. And I actually graduated a year early from my undergraduate studies. And so I thought, hey, I'm the first person in my family to ever go to college. I graduated a year early, so I have a little bit of time. Why not just go get a master's degree and then go out into the workforce after that? So I did an MBA search. I thought that was the right degree for me, settled upon Jenkins, and was luckily accepted into the Jenkins MBA program. And I actually received a assistantship, a teaching assistantship that helped with the burden of cost of an MBA program. And I was fortunate enough to be paired with Professor Thomas. So I TA'd MIE 306 my 2 years in the MBA program, and it was a great experience. And I think really that MIE 306, sitting into the discussions and helping her grade papers and discussion posts really sparked my interest for sustainability. So I have to thank her for that. And I'm not even sure if Professor Thomas knows that or not, but I anyway, sorry. But that really started my spark. But at the time, I didn't think that a career in sustainability was for me. So I did a year-long internship with Butterball during my MBA program, the turkey company, in marketing again. So you'll see this trend of marketing, and then it turns into sustainability a little bit later. So with being a TA for Professor Thomas, she asked me to be onboarded as a BSC associate, and from there, my passion for sustainability really took off. So I helped plan and co-lead a student-led food conference in my last year of my MBA program that essentially got me my internship at CHS, which then rolled over to a full-time role last June for them. And so I know that was very long-winded, but a very good way to tell you about where I've been, how it happened, and where we're going to go from here.
No, not long-winded at all, and I really appreciate it. I was going to ask, just sort of as a follow-up, could you maybe explain just a little bit more about what CHS is as an organization? And you've already touched on it a little bit in terms of what you do with your role as a sustainability analyst, but could you maybe expand on what CHS does in that sphere?
Yes, I would love to. It's actually a very common question that I get asked anytime I introduce CHS. The first question is usually, what does it stand for? And the answer is, it doesn't really stand for much. It's just CHS. But CHS is a global agribusiness, and that is also a cooperative. And the second question I usually get asked is, what is a cooperative? And so the cooperative system is really unique in that we are actually owned by our farmers, ranchers, and other cooperatives across the United States. So we are owned by the people we supply product to, which is not very common nowadays. And so what we like to say is our mission is we are here to create connections to empower agriculture and to also help our farmer owners in their own operations and to succeed. And so when you think about CHS, we supply a number of things to our farmer owners, right? So we supply energy products, crop nutrients, seed, crop protection products, animal nutrition products, and some food ingredients. So I like to say, if you've ever had Hidden Valley Ranch, we sometimes supply the soybeans for for the oil for Hidden Valley Ranch. So we're very behind the scenes in our work, but we are essentially a one-stop shop for farmers to give them everything they need in their operations.
Oh, wonderful. So in the broader sense, you're kind of working in the background to help make connections with farmers and other organizations. Um, that's wonderful to hear. And I guess maybe expanding just a little bit more, what is your role as a sustainability analyst really? What sections, I guess, of CHS's work do you touch?
Oh gosh. I would say just a little bit of everything. I mean, we're very global, so we have over 10,000 employees, which means we have a lot of offices positioned in the United States, Europe, Brazil, and then some Asia offices. So we can, as sustainability our sustainability team can really touch all of that. It depends on the work that we're doing. I know in terms of a greenhouse gas inventory, when you're looking at scoping, typically you have to account for most of your facilities under a certain threshold if they emit. So really our sustainability team is a formalized function at CHS, and we have a global reach. So yeah, I would say we touch quite a bit.
No, that's wonderful to hear. Yeah, no, and thank you. I guess, moving into kind of closer to the generalized Q&A session, we can start jumping into some questions that we've prepared. But our first one would be, what are some key skills and knowledge areas that you believe are essential for success in the early stages of a career in sustainability? I know that you've graduated recently or recently enough, and it'd be wonderful to get to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it was very new for me. Like I said before, I wanted to be a marketer, and then I stumbled upon my career path for sustainability. So it was very new for me to enter into a corporate sustainability function. But I think some of the key skills and knowledge areas essential for success, I feel like my answer is really, I hate to use this phrase, but it depends, right? So it depends on what you really want to go into. But I do know that I would say some core skills or knowledge areas that you really need to apprise yourself of is definitely a change management piece. So, understanding how to drive and manage change within your organization is really key, especially in a sustainability career path. Because sustainability, most oftentimes, is new to companies or they've been doing it for a long, long time. There's really not much in between. So knowing that change management piece is really great, and I think my MBA did a great job of preparing me for that. And then another thing is I feel like this is not talked often enough in early on in sustainability careers, but understanding those economic drivers and principles that come with sustainability initiatives. You have to know the cost benefit of any sustainability initiative that you are trying to implement or manage at a company. That's just how you're going to get buy-in, right? And even though you may not be the one gaining buy-in for those higher stakeholders, you still need to have those key skills to move you forward in your career path. And then I can give a personal example of a key skill or knowledge area that I knew I needed to go into. And that is just like being familiar with standards across sustainability. So I knew I had an interest in sustainability reporting. And so I spent a lot of time, and I still spend a lot of time getting familiar with standards like GRI, SASB, TCFD on yearly sustainability reports. And two, I spend a lot of time now reading pages upon pages of law transposition for new and upcoming sustainability disclosures because oftentimes if you come on board as an analyst like I did, that's going to be a lot of what you do is just updating your managers, your bosses with what's coming around the bend and how much you can understand what impacts your business at this point in time in sustainability. And so I want to go back to it depends,
Yeah.
but yeah, if you know what interests you, I think it's better and you can find those key skills and knowledge areas. Like for instance, if you want to go into climate and you know you have an interest in GHG emissions or inventories, you really have to familiarize yourself with the GHG protocol and possibly life cycle assessments, or if you know you have an interest in people and communities, human rights is a really big topic right now. And so getting to understand like the United Nations guiding principles, those frameworks are really key to helping you along your career path.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for that. Jumping into another question, traditionally when you're within an academic setting, you're picking up on a lot of principles and theory. But there's a bit of a shock when you move into a professional setting and you have to sort of adapt to how to apply that information. So how did you navigate those challenges of transitioning from pure academic theory to application in a professional setting?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will say it was a struggle for me at first. Um, but I felt like some of my MBA classes really prepared me for this, especially MBA 582. And I wish this is a shameless plug, but I really do wish that the business sustainability certificate was offered during my time at Jenkins because I think that would have really helped my transition even more. But MBA 582 really helped put in perspective academic theory to the transition of application to a professional setting through working with you're almost like a consultant in the business sustainability practicum. That's MBA 582, what I was referring to, and helping an actual company or organization work towards a B Corp certification or just getting their company a little bit more sustainable or thinking about things differently. Because that's still what I do to this day. I still work at a company where I have to interact with people. I have to get them to think about things a little bit differently. So I would say that really helped. That hands-on learning experience, which was really great for me. And then two, in my first few years of being an early professional, I think being open to learning new skills and processes was really vital to me. I really took the time to learn and soak up everything that I could from everyone on my team at CHS, and that was really invaluable to me as in my professional growth. And along with that, saying yes to any and every opportunity. I know a lot of people frown upon saying yes to everything. I am a yes girl. And I really do believe in the first few years of your career, you have to say yes as long as you can handle it, because that's the only way you're going to learn. Right. And so, saying yes to every single opportunity I came across, whether I might have not been interested in that project at first, it still gave me a great learning lesson that I can take and use on other projects. So I would really recommend that as well. And you can bring in some of the academic theory that you've learned into your roles and projects and help your transition to the professional kind of life. And then another thing that really helped me was actually professional development. So my first year of my career, I spent a lot of time going to conferences and listening to webinars on my lunch hour. So the big four accounting and consulting firms put on a ton of sustainability webinars, and they're really, really great for an early professional. So I'd also really recommend that as well to help kind of guide your new professional and early career path.
Oh, wonderful, and thank you for that. You had just mentioned something in regards to conferencing and your own involvement in setting up a conference as an associate with the BSC. Um, how much of a role did you see networking taking part in your professional experience? And how did you go about making those meaningful connections with folks?
Yeah, I will say full-heartedly, networking is what got me my position today. Absolutely nothing else, I will say. Um, I know some people might not believe that, but yeah. So first, I would say networking was crucial, and it's very important to always leave a good impression, no matter who you meet. It might be for 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, because you never know where life may take you in the future. And I'll give you an example. So, like you said, I was planning FoodCon my last year of my MBA program. And I was one of the few people who had experience in food and agriculture. And so, one of my responsibilities was to help find panelists for our panels going on during the conference. And I am a person who doesn't mind asking, especially asking for help, and I would just start cold messaging people on LinkedIn. I can't tell you how many people I cold messaged. But years prior, I was a part of an organization called Agriculture Future of America in undergrad. And I had met this woman for maybe about 5 minutes. She was on the board of the directors, just enough to say, "Hi, my name is, I go to this college. See you later," pretty much. And so I connected with her on LinkedIn. I saw that she took a new job role while I was searching for panelists for FoodCon. And I thought, wow, she would be a great keynote speaker at FoodCon. Let me reach out to her. So I cold messaged her after like 5 years of never speaking. And I said, "Hey, I think, we connected, blah, 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 over this. Um, I saw you got a new role. I'm really interested in it. And I have a great opportunity if you wouldn't mind taking 15 minutes of your time to chat with me." So she said yes. She answered, said yes, which about 50% of the time never happens, right? And so we chatted. Unfortunately, she was a little bit booked for FoodCon, but said, "You know what? I have an interest in you. Will you participate in a materiality assessment for our company?" And so I was one of the 25 external stakeholders engaged in an enterprise wide materiality assessment just off of this 15-minute phone call. And after I completed the materiality assessment interview, she said, "I want to bring you on as an intern." And so in my last semester, I interned for CHS. Come to find out, she was the new chief sustainability officer for CHS, and then rolled on to give me a full-time job after graduation in the MBA program. So that it was a huge, huge networking piece that got me to where I am today, and I'm very grateful for that. Um, so as you can see, that's a huge, huge part of where I am today. But another thing before I end with this question, I will say that I actively practice gratitude. And the way I practice gratitude is through written thank you notes. And I actually do think that this helped to get my role at CHS too, because I sent her a thank you card. And and so I would recommend anyone who would like to make a meaningful connection or to network, or after you make a meaningful connection, just write them a handwritten thank you note if you can get a hold of their address, if they're willing to give you their address. It will make such a difference than sending an email thank you or any other type of thank you. People really appreciate it. I don't know if you can see, but at my office, I actually have a wall dedicated to people who have sent me thank you notes. So it happens. I don't know why it works like that. I wish I had some academic theory to bring it back up, but I would also really recommend that, and that has really helped me to steward some meaningful connections.
No, that's wonderful to hear, and thank you. I know in previous years I've done the handwritten thank you note, and honestly, it's very refreshing to see how many people look at that as a positive, and just the fact that you take time out of your day to write a note for someone. It's always very meaningful. But moving on to maybe a different side of things, I know you had mentioned you have somewhat of a winding path in terms of what got you from your start and then how you started here with CHS. But I was wondering if you might have any advice on, well, advice you would give to someone that is passionate about sustainability as a field, but relatively unsure on the specific direction or career trajectory. And I was wondering if you might have any expertise or insight on that.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I'm glad you asked. So when I think about my passion for anything, I like to think of it as a foundation for a house. And then when you're building your house, you have to get different materials, right? And so I think as a person who's passionate about sustainability, they have their foundation of the house, and then what specific career path they want, they can use their resources to help build the house essentially through different materials, like different learning experiences, because sustainability is such a large world and there's many avenues that you can go into, and certainly your path may not be linear. But I do think that if someone is passionate about sustainability and they're not sure what their career path is, getting hands-on experience like through internships, volunteer work, or different projects and roles that they can be a part of, that will help them tremendously to figure out what they want to do. Like I said earlier, just saying yes to opportunity, you never know what doors may open. And so that gives you a chance to test, the waters in various areas and figure out where you really want to go in sustainability. But I think having that key passion is such a core value and will take you so far. Another thing that I think would be really helpful is just informational interviews with sustainability professionals. I know that was really helpful to me. And like I said earlier, I don't mind asking, and I have sent a lot of cold messages on LinkedIn, and I mean a lot. And I would say my response rate is probably about 50%, but those who do answer and take the time out of their day to chat with you makes such the difference in figuring out your career path. And who knows, it might even open you up to different experiences, like asking if you could come shadow them for a day to really see what they do, or a possible internship, or even a full-time role. So I would say informational interviews with anyone throughout your network or anyone that you can find and reach out to would be um, really, really great to have to figure out your career path.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's very insightful. Traditionally, I know you said you had about a 50% success rate on reaching out to folks on LinkedIn, but um, would that typically be just no answer at all, or just a yes or no?
Yeah, it's a good question. So typically it's no answer at all, okay, if you send a message. And I want to put a disclaimer out there. When you send a message, a cold message, you really need to be authentic, intentional with your words, and have a great interest in this person, or someone can see through that. And so they either won't respond, and people are busy. So you have to understand that, rejection is a thing to help you grow, not a thing to hold you back. And so yeah, there'll either be no response or they will be like, "Yes, here's my calendar, please reach out to me." And it's also good if you do get a yes and they give you their email, when you send that first initial, "Hello, thanks so much for giving me your email. Would love to take 15 minutes to chat with you." Go ahead and give some times that you're available, because it makes that person's life on the other end so much easier than having a professional come back to you and give you times. So that's something that I found is really helpful as well.
No, great. And we've kind of been touching on this as a kind of an overall theme of the discussion, but you've mentioned at multiple points about mentorship or interacting and interviewing professionals or people with that level of experience. But in your mind, is mentorship very important for someone entering into the sustainability field? And if you have any kind of advice on how an early professional might be able to kind of engage or even broach that question with someone else.
Yeah, I think mentorship is so important. Having someone to bounce off ideas with and really understand where you want to go in life and just have a sounding board with someone that you trust is very, very crucial, especially when you're starting out. I know I have a couple mentors, one in more of a formal mentorship program setting at CHS, that I found to be really beneficial, especially now as I'm kind of in a interesting point in my career where I want to advance, but I also know I need a little bit more key skills under my belt. So having a mentor and bouncing those types of questions about my career path to him has been instrumentally helpful. And so I would recommend everyone to have a mentor because they can help you navigate some complexities of your industry or your career path. um, but I will say there are a few things to consider when trying to find a mentor. So you don't want just a random person that you know to be your mentor. You want it to be really intentional. So, oops, sorry. So before you start that search, you really need to look into yourself and identify, what are my goals for this mentorship? Because if you don't have any goals or your values aren't aligned with this person who you want to have as a mentor, then it just won't work. Um, and so having this clarity will help you identify a mentor who aligns with your vision on where you want to go in the future. And then after that, you seek a mentor who will align with you, either through your network, or maybe I know I got lucky. Some of my supervisors recommended this person for me to be a mentor to me, who was outside of my sustainability team, which I really appreciated because my mentor can give me a very different perspective than my own team has. So I would also say that that might be a little bit of something to think of. And then when you're searching for a mentor, you really need to be clear in what you want to ask them. So I've heard a couple people form a mentorship charter with this person, and essentially it outlines the timing, what you want to accomplish, your goals, and then also their goals, and what you hold accountability for. And I've heard from many people that that's been very beneficial for them. And honestly, I wish I would have done that in my mentorship program. So I will take that as a feedback topic for me to bring up with him, and then maybe on my next mentor, I'll do a mentorship charter. But really, you have to foster that two-way relationship, in the mentorship, and just stay open. And yeah, I think I regardless to say, I do think mentors are very important. And even if it's just an informal mentor, that's okay too. It doesn't have to be anything formalized, or if that makes you feel better, that's fine too. But yeah, mentors can be everywhere and anything.
Well, and I know you had mentioned that at least your current mentor is outside of your direct group. And do you find that having kind of that diversity of opinion and different viewpoint helpful in not only just your work, but your professional growth?
I think so. I do. It's also a difference in almost personality and perspective as well. So I can give you a little context. I obviously work in the sustainability realm, with which at times is very chaotic, and we live in the gray area. And my mentor, he works in mergers and acquisitions. So his life is very black and white in a finance position. And so that has helped me kind of build structure around my position and my career path, which I really appreciated. And he's given me a lot of insights on, kind of his own perspective in the financial world that I could bring into my own career. Because I will be the first to tell you, I am not a finance person at all. In my MBA program, I tried to stay away from that as far as I could. And so it's funny to be paired with a mentor who focuses on that now. And I actually appreciate it so much more to learn from his perspective and what he does. And so, yeah, I do appreciate it.
Oh, great. Um, and you've mentioned this a couple of times about operating in a gray area, but do you have maybe some common misconceptions about maybe starting out in sustainability or just the work itself that you think would be beneficial for like a new professional to avoid, or something that you would even run into?
Yeah. So the first misconception I would say is that you have to know everything. And I know we've kind of touched on a question earlier today on that, on like key skills and knowledges to have. So I feel like a lot of people, when they go into a sustainability function, especially as an early professional, they're like, oh my gosh, I know so little. You get imposter syndrome because you feel like, oh, I just don't deserve to be here. Everyone else knows so much more than me. And that's just not the reality. That's not the case. You don't have to be a technical expert from the start. And actually, it's better if you don't know a lot of technical aspects or even the knowledge and skills that you need right off the bat because it gives you a diverse perspective that others may not have. um, so you might feel pressured to be an expert from the start, but by no means do you have to. Just being open and accountable for the way you work is really extremely important. So I would say that's probably the first misconception. And then um, another misconception that I hear a lot is about impact, right? So we all are in a sustainability function or career path to make an impact, to make a difference, to do for the greater good, but it's not always as expected or immediate. And so you have to learn how to take the little wins along with the big wins that you may see in the future. And I don't think a lot of sustainability professionals celebrate that enough. They're so focused on the bigger picture and the bigger commitments when the work happens on the ground day by day. And so I think that's a common misconception is that we just have to have an immediate impact. It's expected, it's needed, and that's just not the case. So you have to set excuse me, realistic expectations for yourself and for others, and honestly the company too, because it won't get there in in the way that you think it will. I think those are my
No,
two
that's
biggest
no,
misconceptions. Yeah.
yeah, that's great. I think it kind of brings us into another question that you've kind of touched on, but we can all acknowledge that there are certain issues going on in the world, and there's a level of urgency to some of the problems that we face. But how do you balance the urgency of some of these issues with just the, you know, with just the patience and expectations in achieving long term goals or long-term sustainability goals?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you have to have patience, like you
Mhm.
said. Patience is crucial. Um, and you have to know your end goal, right? Like, I think that's where the sense of urgency comes from. We have all of these things that we need to get done, and we know we have to get done. So you have to know your end goal, but know that it won't happen overnight. And as long as you, like I said earlier, continue day by day to kind of chip the block away, that is really the balance that you need to find. Um, it's challenging for me to say that you find a good balance in sustainability because things are always changing. And so it really depends. It's a tricky one.
No, and it's ultimately it's why we ask these sorts of questions, right? That when somebody's entering in or somebody's within their first years in a role, it's good to know their perspective on that they can't fix the world overnight, but that there is an end goal in mind, the expectation that eventually you'll hope to get there. Um, and so, we've been talking a lot about goals and roadmaps and just professional experience, but kind of on the lighter side, what do you like to do for fun? You seem like you enjoy agriculture, which is apparent, but is that something you like to do in your free time, or what do you like to do?
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a farmer or anything like that by any means. I give them all the credit, but I do not really have a green thumb. Actually, before the call, Eric and Rachel, I'm going to mention you. We were talking about the Chinese money tree in the background, and that's one of my lone survivors of my green thumb skills. So I do love plants, but they do not necessarily love me, which is unfortunate. But in my off time, when I am not working, I really love to volunteer. So I'm an active volunteer with an organization local to the RTP area. We have a chapter in Fuquay. called Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And what that organization does essentially is provide beds for children who do not have beds in the Raleigh area. So we go and construct them and deliver them to the children on Saturdays. So that's always really fun. And then really love spending time with my family, doing all the hobbies like cooking, reading, things like that. So a little bit of an old woman at heart, but yeah.
No, and you had mentioned the chaos of sometimes the work you do. So, it's always good to have some hobbies that you can relax with. But, this goes out for everyone that will probably be transitioning into the Q&A section. And I see that we have a couple of folks that have already started posting some really great questions. But if anybody has anything they'd like to ask, we can post it and start going through them.
Sweet.
Awesome. So Amanda asks that I work in horticulture, and some of the growers in our industry are very interested in voluntary carbon markets in the US. Have you done any work in this area? And if so, what has been your experience and where do you see carbon credits heading in the near future?
Yeah, that's a super great question. Thank you so much, Amanda, for raising that. I have done a little work and research into voluntary carbon markets. I will say it is the wild, wild west right now. I don't know what your growers are saying. It's a very confusing time for them, and there's a lot of carbon programs out there for farmers to sign up for, but there's a lot of questions like, how do farmers protect their data, or how do they get paid? So I would say there's still a lot of question marks on voluntary carbon markets. Um, and it just needs some regulation around it, actually. So, what my hope is for the future for voluntary carbon markets and what we're seeing is that someone has to step in and begin a standardization process for these carbon programs to put some reins around it, so that way farmers can get what they need and receive an incentive for this. I know there's a lot of tax credits also being put out for carbon programs and carbon intensity scores. So that might be interesting to growers as well in the future. But for right now, I will say that there's a lot of movement in it. And I know obviously with an incentive, growers and farmers are very, very interested in what they can do to provide that added income to their operations. But as of right now, it's just it's very, very wild out there. But I do see in the future it heading to more of a standardization, which we need, and hopefully growers will benefit from that. And I hope Amanda that answers your question. And if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat or always reach out to me, and I'll be happy to take it offline as well.
Great. We have another question asking if you have any recommendations for sustainability software and how to learn about reporting in that function. Is there some piece of software that in particular you do most of your work with?
Yeah, CHS is actually currently looking at how we can get better at reporting, especially with a lot of regulations coming out. So these regulations that I'm talking about, two in particular, that are really big to watch out for, are happening in the European Union. One is called the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, and the other is the European Union Deforestation Regulation. Excuse me, those are regulations that are coming out and will be in transposition to law very soon, where a lot of these larger companies will have to comply for bringing commodities into Europe. If they do not comply and do a due diligence statement or any other type of sustainability standards that they are going to require, their goods will be turned away from Europe. So it could be a very significant loss of business. And so we are actually looking at how we can get better at figuring out what we need for reporting and compliance. But on my personal life for reporting, what I can kind of suggest to you is some of the free standards that they have. So IFRS is a great website to learn about some standards for reporting. Like I said, GRI, GRI is not typically the standards that we use anymore. We're seeing a big shift in the industry to either IFRS or TCFD, which is the Task Force for Climate Disclosures, I believe. Don't count me on that one. And so those will be great tools to learn more about reporting. And then for a regulation tracker, which this is not free, unfortunately, but C2P by Risk and Compliances is a great regulation tracker.
Well, awesome. Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions? Well,
Sweet.
yeah.
Just,
Oh,
just out of curiosity, Kayla, thank you so much for your time. And I think anybody who eats should have an interest in agriculture. And to borrow a phrase from NC State, why not agriculture? But on that note, I'm curious if you are going to be at the Sustainable Ag Conference in Durham in November.
I don't
If you have gone to
know.
that in the past.
I did not know there was one, but I will look into it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you might catch me there. I don't know.
well, kind of building off
That
of
would be
that,
great.
do you have any recommendations for conferences within the sustainability field? I know you mentioned that early on you went to a good number of them.
Yeah, so those were mainly company conferences. So I know that Field to Market is a really great conference. They have a sustainable agriculture summit every year. It moves locations. I was fortunate enough to attend on behalf of my company, but I do believe they offer some discounts to students. And last year they were in Charlotte, which was very lucky for me. So I could just take my car instead of flying. And so I would highly recommend that conference. It has a bunch of different topics on sustainable agriculture, and you can network with a lot of people there. Um, but other ones, I feel like those are very specific, and I would suggest that one to start. And apparently, the Sustainable Agriculture Conference in Durham that I will probably be attending in November. Yeah.
Awesome. And I guess maybe as like just a last thought, but have you found, at least in your organization, any pitfalls or any points within your organization that you feel like might require a little bit more growth, or maybe in the industry at large, where you feel that they maybe aren't meeting your expectations, or they have room for growth?
Yeah, I think I'll speak on the industry. I think there is a lot of learning that needs to be done and a lot more research. I know with regenerative agriculture and things like that, there's been a big growth in it, which I really appreciate. And I think agriculture itself presents a tremendous opportunity to be a solution maker, where in the past we may have been seen as a problem child to many people. So, what we're seeing is a lot of farmers can actually turn their farm into what we like to call a carbon sink by using regenerative agriculture practices like no-till, cover crops, and things like that. So, I'm very excited about that. But I think we just need to get better with education in this industry. Historically, you know, growers are very steadfast in what they believe, and some of them have been doing sustainability for a long time, but all of them have been doing great things to be stewards of the land. And so I think right now in the industry, there's a time of a lot of uncertainty, like Amanda was talking about with the carbon markets and things like that. And we just have to get better at educating them and understanding what their needs are, because I hear a lot of times we just don't let the farmers speak, and then we decide what's best for them. And so I think that's really a key piece of where we need to go in sustainability and the overall agriculture industry. So I would say those are some of the things that we're lacking, that education and communication um, speak.
Great. Well, if unless anybody has any other questions, Kayla, I just wanted to thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming out and speaking with us. And just for those listening, Rachel has posted a short Google Doc or a Google survey just to get some ideas about, where we're coming from as students and what industries we're interested in, just to get a better understanding of how to tailor these questions for the future. But yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for the time, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their day.
Yeah, thanks so much.